All right, so last week I talked about learning to start, and then I talked about how I needed to finish a draft of a script of my play Calafia, and I thought, well, then this week I should talk about learning to finish. I was able to finish that first draft, which is exciting because it's been a year coming. And it took some unexpected turns that I'm still kind of mulling over. It feels like it went in the right direction, and I'll find out more when I actually go to the workshop tonight and have some actors read it, so that's very exciting. But learning to finish. I think the first thing I would have to say about learning to finish is one that we all know and hear told to us many times, which is set deadlines. Now, if you have a workshop or a reading or a production coming up, then there is a deadline set for you, right? But what if you don't have those things? Well, you can set deadlines for yourself by talking to a dramaturg and setting up a meeting, or talking to a friend and saying, hey, I'd like to be this far into my script. Can we meet up for coffee or tea and talk through it? Whatever it takes to kind of give yourself that date. So, same old advice. That's something that we've all heard. What I am interested in actually is what keeps us from finishing sometimes. And there are many reasons, but the one I want to specifically talk about today is one that I think every artist struggles with, which is perfectionism. Our desire sometimes to get something perfect out the gate keeps us from actually finishing a thing or presenting it to the world because we feel like it's not ready yet or it needs to meet a certain standard. Yes, we want our work to be quality, but should that mean that that quality is going to just blossom in that first draft? No. And the more you write, the easier that idea sits with you. I think especially if you're starting out, the desire to get everything great and perfect so that the first person who reads the first ever draft has no criticism to say. I think we kind of set ourselves up like that, thinking that that's how it should be, and then face severe disappointment when that doesn't happen, and that makes it harder to want to do it again. But I promise the more you actually do it, the more you realize, oh, it's not going to be perfect out the gate. For example, the draft of Calafia that I finished this week, I already know that there are issues with it. But I set this deadline of a workshop. I needed to have a full draft, so whether the ending in particular is nicely written or not, I'm going to hand it to the actors and then take notes on what I know or what I learn might need to change about the script. A couple weeks back, I also finished a first full draft of my new play Freedom Conference, and I had a deadline for that through the Just Theater's new Play Lab reading. In preparation for that, I talked to the director I was working with, Anthony Jackson, on what my goal should be. Should my goal be to refine the writing as much as possible, regardless of whether I get to the end or not? Or should I get to the end and not worry about refining the writing? Given my limited time, I felt like that was the decision I was facing. Anthony, without much hesitation, said, finish the thing and refine later. And I'm so glad he told me that because I feel like by finishing it, I can now kind of get a better bird's eye view of what's going on rather than getting stuck in the proverbial weeds and worrying about this little aspect of it here without ever getting to the ending. So for what it's worth, I encourage you, if you're having trouble finishing a thing because of perfectionism, start to let that go and finish it so that you can then put it forth to get feedback from the people that you trust and then perfect it later. But if there is a procrastination element, then some of the stuff I shared last week still applies, where maybe you need to refine the joy of writing it, or maybe you just need to take time away and let your brain do other things in order to process what is happening and giving you that writer's block. Or maybe having a deadline will just help you actually churn something out, and you have to be okay with it not being amazing because the amazingness will come later. So that was pretty much it. Don't let perfectionism be the reason why you don't finish drafts. Get those songs, get those drafts done, even if you know that it's not your best work. And just take the notes and keep going and give yourself space to perfect it later. All right, that feels like enough for today. I will see you next week.